So guys, if we can just recap before we move on. So we said that we have our blood vessel right here, and this blood vessel, around it we have our cells. And we know that here we've got our intracellular fluid. Here we have got our interstitial fluid. Then here we've got our plasma, right? We also know that there's a movement of water between these fluid compartments. Water moves from the intravascular into the interstitial space because of the hydrostatic pressure. That same water is drawn back from the interstitial space by the oncotic pressure, right? The fluid that cannot be drawn by the oncotic pressure back into the intravascular space, it goes back to the subclavian veins via the lymphatic vessels. As long as everything is happening nicely, we won't have any edema. So we're going to take it a step further now. If we say that the factors that control the movement of water from the intravascular to the interstitial is these two, so what are the factors that determine the movement of water from the interstitial into the cells? That's what we're going to be talking about. Just going to clear space and then we move on. So remember, what is important to remember is that we have our vessel there, we've got our cells, we've got our cells, we've got our cells like that. So the movement of water from the interstitial space or the interstitial compartment into the intracellular space is dependent on the amount of solute or solutes across the cell membrane. So what I'm trying to say is the hydrostatic pressure and the oncotic pressure, they don't play a role when it comes to the movement of water from the interstitial into the intracellular space. Guys, you need to understand what I'm trying to say here. We know that movement from the intravascular into the interstitial space the forces that are there is your hydrostatic and your oncotic. But here we are now talking about the movement of water from the interstitial to the intracellular and back. So these two forces do not play a role, but what determines the movement of water there is your concentration gradient of solutes. Concentration gradient. That's what I'm trying to explain. Okay. Now, what are these solutes that we're talking about? What are these solutes that determine this movement? The solutes that we're talking about is your electrolytes. You also do find other substances like your proteins mainly, right? Okay, I'm gonna clear the space again here. That's just to create a space for us. Okay, maybe we should talk about this concept first. Say I have a bucket, and in this bucket I have water, right? I have water, and I've got some solutes that are dissolved in that water. What I do is I put in a cell that has got a lot of solute in it. So we know that if this water has got fewer or a lesser concentration of solutes or fewer molecules, by definition it is hypotonic. And this one, because it has got a higher concentration, it means it's hypertonic, right? So the hypertonic cell is gonna draw the water from this container. Water is gonna start moving inside this cell, start moving like that, start getting inside the cell. Because of the concentration, the difference in the concentration. So there's a concentration gradient. So there's a difference between the concentration that is here and the concentration that is in the cell. So water will move. So this water around here will start decreasing because the water will start getting into that cell. The opposite is also true. If we put the same bucket of water and then we put in a cell inside there, but the cell that we put this time is hypotonic and the water around it is hypertonic, what is going to happen is that water is going to start to move out of this cell. This cell will collapse. This cell will swell up, right? I mean, this is what we learned earlier on when we're still in high school and stuff. So now the So this is vice versa now. This one now is the hypertonic one, and this one is the hypotonic one. Hypotonic, right? Now a third scenario would be very important, guys. Please pay attention. Let's say now you have a bucket again. There's a few solutes there, and then there's a few solids there, such that there is no gradient between this. It means that the same amount of water that goes in there will be the same amount of water that will go out. So there won't be any net movement of water. There won't be any net movement of water. No net movement of water. Because this is isotonic. Right? This is very important, guys. If there's anything that you need to remember here is this part. It's this part, because in the human body, this is what we want, right? So the movement of water from the interstitial to the intracellular is dependent on the concentration gradient across that bilipid layer. It has got nothing to do with the oncotic or the hydrostatic pressure. That's what I want you guys to get. Okay, let me clear space again. So remember, the cell has got a bilipid layer like that. These are more tighter than I'm gonna draw them, guys. Ne? They're tightly packed. So this is our cell going around, our bilipid layer. The solutes that determine the movement of water here are the following. Remember what a cation is and an anion is. A cation is a positively charged ion. An ion can either be charged or it can be, actually it can either be positive or negative, right? So cations are positively charged ions and anions are negatively charged ions. Remember, an atom that is not charged is not an ion, is an atom. So a cation or an anion, so whether it becomes charged or not, whether an atom becomes charged or not, it depends on the amount or the number of electrons it has received or it has lost, right? So cations in the body, we find them in the extracellular space, and also we find them in the intracellular. Positive cations that are in the extracellular space include, the main one is sodium. Sodium is the main cation that is found in the extracellular space. And there's also calcium there.